guys, welcome again to Climate Connect Nigeria. Here we talk about climate change, conversation around climate change, negotiations in Nigeria and in Africa. And my name is Jairus Awo. We've been talking about climate change and how to make people understand what it is climate change is and several factors that contribute to climate change. The other time, we had someone who spoke about climate change and conversations and definitions of climate change. We want to go further with that conversation. And today we'll be having a conversation around greenhouse gases effect and how it all come to be, and some of those things that when you see them, you realize that those are the causes of climate change in your area. And today we have Mr. Samuel John, the Deputy Executive Director and the Admin Coordinator of Ambassadors of Dialogue, Climate and Reintegration. And today he's going to help us understand greenhouse gases effect and how to also let you know what you contributing to climate change. Welcome to Climate Connect Nigeria, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. Jairus.
Walk us through your work as DCL Ambassador.
As you know, thank you once again. As you know, this year Ambassador started as a drive under seal to pursue climate change and also to see how can be able to sensitize and also enlighten people about the causes of climate change and also how we can mitigate and also the adaptation models that can be put in place to ensure that we survive and coexist with whatever climate change situation we find ourselves. So the organization was bettered based on that dreams and aspiration by the president of the organization, which is Ambassador Richard Implement. And since then, a couple of young and energetic youths have come to put hands together to see that that dream is being actualized. So that is why we're here today.
Oh, good. It's interesting to know that you're working around climate change. So we've been hearing about greenhouse gases for a long time now. Help us understand, what are those greenhouse gases?
So greenhouse gases are those gases in the Earth's atmosphere that release, emit and absorb radiation, thereby trapping heat and then contributing to the greenhouse gases. You observe that the sun shines through the atmosphere in the morning during the day, and then at night it retracts back and then it cools down and releases those heat. Now some of those heats are being trapped back, thereby contributing to the greenhouse gases. That is why we say when the sun shines through the day, at night it cools and releases. So it's not every gas that is being released that goes back. Some of them are trapped and then it emits heat to the atmosphere. That is how greenhouse gases come about.
Okay, so what are those gases?
We have about 8 or more greenhouse gases, but the ones that we're familiar with and used to are about 5 or 6 or thereabout. We have the methane, we have the carbon dioxide, we have the water vapor, and we have the F gases, which is the fluorinated gases, then we have the chlorofluorocarbons, and then also the hydrofluorocarbons.
All right, talk to us about carbon dioxide and sources of carbon dioxide.
The carbon dioxide, which is the CO2, are mostly they are released through fossil fuel combustion and deforestation, that is falling of trees, and then also through the changes that occur in land use. And then we have methane, which is the CH4, which is mostly released through agricultural activities like livestock farming and also cultivation of rice. And then we also have the production of natural gas and also the landfills. And then we have the nitrous oxide, which is the N2O, which is released from also some agricultural activities and then also industrial activities and also burning of fossil fuel in at an industrial capacity or in a very, very large quantity. And then we have the water vapor, which is mostly the abundant greenhouse gases that is mostly controlled by the temperature that I talked about earlier when I was defining the greenhouse gases. So the water vapor is largely controlled by the temperature on the Earth's atmosphere. As we all know that water exists in three different states, which is we have the liquid, the solid, and also the gas. And as we all know that when the sun is hot and the temperature rises, it heats the water and then the water evaporates back to the atmosphere. Now, the abundant one I talked about earlier is those ones that are from the atmosphere. And when it reaches there in large quantity, it can bring about extreme weather conditions. Examples are like flood, and sometimes it can even cause some changes in climate condition of a particular geographic area. Another example of water vapor is when you're cooking. You observe that when you cover the pot, then when the water reaches a boiling point, a particular temperature, you observe that the water evaporates and stays on top of the cover of the pot. Those ones on top are the ones that have been released. That's what we call water vapor. And at the atmospheric level, we call them gases. So those are the gases that fall under the water vapor that also affect the greenhouse or cause the greenhouse gases effect.
So because I can actually relate to that, because when we're cooking, we see that water will begin to evaporate, and then when you open the cover, you see water on it again. So when it gets to the atmosphere, when it's too much in the atmosphere, it begin to cause extreme weather event. But I'm curious about other ones you've mentioned, like methane, nitrous oxide, and especially the carbon dioxide. Research have shown that carbon dioxide is much potent, even though it's not as much as in terms of quantity in the atmosphere. They said it is much potent in the atmosphere. Do you have ways that we can reduce emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere?
Of course, there are many practices and there are many ways of which are tested and have been approved by several world conventions that can be used to combat carbon dioxide as one of the greenhouse gases. So some of the ways which, like I mentioned earlier, we can adopt to combat this climate change, especially the greenhouse gases effect, is by adopting that practice of reducing, recycling, and also reusing the waste that we produce in our day-to-day activities. Example is if you look at some of the plastic waste around us, there are some that are really, really unnecessary. And then if we say, okay, we must use this plastic, why not reduce the number of plastics we use? And then the ones that we have been able to use, why not recycle it instead of going to produce another one to increase the number of the waste in the ocean, in the land, in the field, in the landfills, and every other places. And then the aspect of reusing. We can use plastic to create a lot of things. We could use waste and transform it into wealth. If you go to several countries, a lot of practices have been put in place, and there are other countries that have put in laws that there are no polythene, plastic, leather bags that are used. When you buy something from the market or shops, they put it in a paper bag for you because paper is biodegradable, and you know that plastic is not biodegradable. You understand? And then also we should reduce the amount of waste we drop on the landfills. If you go to where a landfill is, you observe that there is a huge amount of heat that is emitting, that is producing from that particular landfill. That is, imagine that heat now emitting, going back to the atmosphere and then contributing. That is why we have methane. And then also from all that waste from agricultural practices, like I said, the livestock farming and cultivation of rice, when they are together, they emit, when they decompose, they now become one of the greenhouse gases that we call methane. And that can be used in other positive aspects, but I think it is contributing negatively to the atmosphere. Now, like I was also saying, some of the solution we could also adapt is that of fossil fuel combustion and the usage during transportation and other industrial activities. If you take an example in vegetables that we consume, if you look at the amount of fuel, for instance, that will take you from Adamawa to Benue to go and transport vegetables or bring vegetables from Benue to Adamawa State. If you calculate the amount of fossil fuel that will be consumed and will emit and contribute to the greenhouse gases, we can say, okay, let us devise or practice the green garden farming in all our houses. And then by doing that, we have a sufficient amount of vegetable in our backyards that will be able to harvest and pick from in keeping ourselves nourished from day to day, thereby also contributing positively to the climate change adaptation plans. And then also the aspect of deforestation too. By felling of trees and also not planting trees when you uproot a tree, it also contributes to the climate change effect by the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And then if you also look at the current challenges that we're facing now, which is using firewood for cooking and every other mechanisms that are put in place to be used by wood, I think it's high time we'll start looking through the other means of uprooting one tree and planting maybe 5 or 10. By so doing, we are already combating the climate change, and then in the nearest future, we'll have a lot of trees that even though we have uprooted some, we still have a lot that will still stand the test of time, thereby reducing the greenhouse effects that is contributed to the climate change.
Wow, that's a lot he has said about solutions to climate change. She spoke about carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. And he's been able to give us solutions, things we can do to make sure in our own cubicle we're contributing to climate solutions, so that we don't have to have too much of climate disasters around us. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam, for your insight and all you have taught us. We hope that by the time we call you again for our next edition, you'll be ready to help us with your knowledge.
Always a pleasure. That is what we do.
All right, thank you very much for joining us on this edition. We hope that you enjoyed and you learned a lot. Join us again next week when we shall come with another beautiful edition. My name is Jairus Awo. See you again.